And I guess Danish is on your way. Well, my name is Meg Barron, and I'm the director for the Alzheimer's Association here in South Texas. And I want to thank you guys for coming out today. Our symposium here today is really to introduce you to what Alzheimer's is, and then go into a little bit more about the research, medical information, and then going lastly into a caregiving support. So please ask questions today. We got a lot of great vendors over here, as well as the Alzheimer's Association table in the back. Take advantage of all the resources here. And quickly before I move into introducing our representative here in South Texas, I'd first like to introduce your mayor, Mayor Tony Martinez.
She asked me how I wanted to be introduced, and I just simply want to say a mayor that cares. Because I do, and I wanted to, the person that had asked me to please come by was from Incarnate Word, Edward Camarillo, who's a dear friend. But I thought about, all the little commitments that we have, and I said, this is one that I want to be in. And I'll share with you why not only do I care as a person, but on a personal basis. When I think about Incarnate Word, my oldest sister, God rest her soul, happened to have been a graduate, and I'm very proud of her. She was valedictorian. I never got there, but she was valedictorian in her class a long time ago. And if you ever go on that campus, they do have a museum and about all the former graduation classes. And in those days, they didn't wear a cap and gown like you see all these wonderful graduates doing today. But unfortunately, toward the end of her life, she had Alzheimer's. And we didn't know that because we didn't have symposiums like this. We didn't know how to distinguish between just forgetfulness and actual disease, and or differentiate between dementia and Alzheimer's. And I also happen to have my only daughter, who is a psychiatrist up in San Antonio with the UT Health System. So I had a lot of little different connections that compelled me to come tell you, because this is a devastating disease. I've been through it. We had to get caretakers. It was a difficult task. It's very devastating on the person who's going through it, but can even be more so to the caretakers. And that's why I'm glad you have some of the vendors here, because at those times, you don't always know where to go. You don't know how to dive, how to kind of take a look at what you're supposed to be looking at. So pay close attention, because I'll tell you what, you can avoid a lot of the pitfalls. And when you all have your walk, God willing, I will be there, so that we can end Alzheimer's. I like to quote Nelson Mandela a lot, because we have a lot of challenges in our life. And so many times we say, well, that's just impossible. And Nelson Mandela used to say, it's only impossible until it's done. So we can put an end to Alzheimer's if we just put our mind and our hearts in it and help. So give your undivided attention, spread the word, be the disciples that you have to be for this disease, so that we can eliminate it, have sufficient funds to have all the research that was required, and in the interim, make sure we have enough tools in our toolbox to be able to tell when such a disease is coming our way. Thank you so much for being here.
And quickly on your tables, if you haven't filled them out already, we're asking everybody to take the Purple Challenge. June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, and we want to bring awareness to Alzheimer's disease. The 6th leading cause of death in the United States doesn't get enough attention. So we're asking everybody to wear purple this Monday, June 1st. Tell your staff, tell your family, And we just want to have people ask us, why are you wearing purple? And then tell them everything you're going to learn today. They'll love you for it. And I quickly want to introduce Eliseo Chavez, who is our representative here in South Texas for the Alzheimer's Association.
Good morning and welcome everyone. My name is Eliseo Chavez. I am the representative here in South Texas in the Rio Grande Valley for the Alzheimer's Association. And it's good to see you here, many familiar faces. But if I have not had the opportunity to talk to you, please approach me. I'll be glad to talk to you and share what we're doing here in South Texas in the Rio Grande Valley. I'm mostly going to be in that corner area where the table's at. And during lunch, I'm going to share some great information about resources that's available to you. So welcome and thank you for being here.
And I'm going to call Joe Zapata, and he is going to talk to anybody who is getting their CE credits and tell you kind of how you need to go about doing that.
Please remain seated. Thank you. Okay, paperwork. Oh, everybody loves paperwork. Okay, who here is getting CEUs, sort of credits? Awesome. Any social workers, nurses, lawyers? Awesome. Okay, first thing you're going to pull out in your folder is the statement of attendance form. This is a 4-page front and back form. Actually, it's 2 pages front and back. And it shows you the CEUs possible for today's talk. You're going to turn it over on page 2. You're going to fill out the CEU you want. You're going to put your signature. You're going to print your name clearly and put your email address. And what's going to happen is that after today's conference, you're going to turn this back into me. Please read this carefully, Logan. And then I will send you an email link. This link will lead you to an evaluation. And then once you complete the evaluation online, I will send you your certificate online. So it's pretty a straightforward process. It's pretty easy. There shouldn't be any issues. If you have any questions pertaining to that, I'll be up and around, so definitely approach me about that, and I'll definitely help you out and direct you. And if there's a CEU that's not listed here and you're wanting that, definitely come talk to me, and I'll see what I can do about that to kind of help you out and get the credits available to you. Next page is the participant profile page. This is a one-page back in front demographic profile page, which helps us secure funding to have these conferences at a low cost or free conferences in the future, and it gives you this gives you the opportunity to obtain this kind of information. It's very important information to you. So you can fill out as much as you want or as little as you want. Any little bit really helps. A little bit goes a long way. So definitely have those in at the end of the conference. And again, any little bit helps. So, and then we have a follow us on YouTube flyer. We have several talks that are placed on YouTube. And if you want to see this particular talk on YouTube, it'll be available. And if you want a DVD of this talk, it's being recorded by my partner here, Mark Johnson. Go to him and fill out one of those DVD pages and hand it back to him, and he will mail you a DVD of this conference, including some photos and all the slides and some more information. So if you need that, would be great. And then lastly, we have the Summer Student Aging Enrollment Form. It's located in San Antonio. It's the last week of June. It's a week-long 40-hour, 40-speaker conference. It's going to be held at the ADL Murphy VA Hospital. And if you'd like to attend that, you get a lot of credits. I think it's worth the drive. And behind that is the schedule. So if there's something you see that really tickles you, you can go ahead and fill that out and give it to us at the end of the conference, or you can scan it and mail it or email it, wherever you'd like that, if you don't want to do it today. Other paperwork that's located within the folder is a leaflet, multi-page, yellow cover. It's one of the speakers. She'll be talking about that during her talk. Also included is the agenda for today. This was printed, it's pretty current, isn't it? Yeah, it's pretty current, so there shouldn't be any major changes in this. You also have one of these. They can probably do that a little bit later on. And then we have the longest day. Maybe we'll talk about that also. name today's evaluation for today. Just let us know how we're doing. Please turn us in at the end of the conference. Giving us feedback provides us much needed information to produce better, more efficient conferences and educational symposiums. So, with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Meg Barron. She is the Executive Director of the President of the South Texas and San Antonio Alzheimer's. So please give her a warm round of applause. Thank
you. And quickly, Joe did pull this up. This is our advocacy card. To get funding increases, especially at the federal level, we have to get our politicians to kind of pay attention. And that takes a lot of work. What we do is we ask everybody, every event across the country to fill one of these out, and then we put them together by zip code, and we take them directly to your representative, and we say this many people in your district want to see an increase in funding for research or a change in regards to Alzheimer's disease. So please take a moment to fill that out. There's a basket over at the Alzheimer's table there. We will be using these as the raffle tickets as well for a prize. But please take a moment because we do need to increase funding for research for Alzheimer's disease. So our first talk this morning is really a basic on what Alzheimer's disease is, to give you an introduction on understanding the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia, and to really give a better look into kind of the behaviors and communications of someone with Alzheimer's disease. First, this is Dr. Ron Peters. He's the head of Alzheimer's disease at the Mayo Clinic. He's also the head of our research board for the Alzheimer's Association, and I'm just going to play a quick video from him.
In general, we talk about individuals age 65 and older that people have perhaps an 8 to 10% risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. But it's clearly age-related. So if your family tends to live into their 80s and maybe 90s, your risk is going to go up rather dramatically. On the other hand, if the people in your family tend to die in their 70s, the risk is lower. But it's clearly an age-related phenomenon, and with baby boomers now, those individuals born between the years of 1946 and 1964, moving into their 60s, this is going to exaggerate the number of people eligible, so to speak, for Alzheimer's disease rather dramatically. Some people have indicated that if we do not do something for Alzheimer's disease, meaning delay the onset, slow the progression, ideally we'd like to cure the disease, but even if we have these modulating effects of Alzheimer's disease, it as a single entity will bankrupt the healthcare system as we know it, because there are so many people in that age who will need services, will need extra care, that this will bankrupt the system.
And Dr. Peters is exactly right. Right now, we're spending 1 out of every 5 Medicare dollar goes toward supporting someone with Alzheimer's disease. That's not research, that's going for care. That's 1 out of every $5 we spend. And we just can't continue that. And he also talked about the baby boomers. Yes, 4 years ago, the baby boomer wave hit, the largest generation we've ever had, and age is the risk factor. Everybody ages, so we all have a chance of developing Alzheimer's disease. Now, I have a lot of people come to me and say, I'm somebody that loses my keys all the time. Does that mean I'm going to develop Alzheimer's disease, or that I'm on the track for developing Alzheimer's disease? I always try not to laugh because I lose my keys all the time. No, that is a very typical type of aging. Our bodies, as we get older, can't do what we used to be able to do. It's the same with our brains. And I tell people, if you're losing your keys, not a problem. If you don't know what your keys do, then you have a problem, then come talk to me. So again, typical age-related forgetfulness, forgetting how to program your VCR every once in a while. I do that all the time, and I always have to get my partner, he always has to tell me how to use the DVD player. Very normal. My father, on the other hand, my father used to be was a CPA. My father used to be able to do every type of checkbooks. Can't do anything anymore. Isn't able to balance a checkbook. My father has Alzheimer's disease. So that's kind of the steps we saw. Now, we're going to play a video from a lovely woman who has Alzheimer's disease, and she's going to be able to kind of give you a little bit of kind of things she noticed when she started to realize something was wrong.
I noticed there was a time when I was dialing the phone and the buttons were, I couldn't dial the phone. And so I went to the neurologist, and she said, they said they did not do some tests, and they said they didn't seem that anything was different. But then a couple of months later, I noticed that not only could I not dial the phone, but I was having difficulties writing. I was having difficulties spelling simple words like of and the. I was falling a lot. I began to have accidents, like minor accidents, driving accidents. And at that time, my husband said, you know, we're going to the doctor.
And again, I do have a lot of people in my office who ask me, why do I need to go see a doctor? There's no cure for Alzheimer's disease. There's no way to stop the progression. What's the point? We'll get into more of the differences in dementias, but it is extremely important, as soon as you start to see signs in a loved one or yourself, to go see a specialist, go see your GP, just to find out if it could be something that's not Alzheimer's disease, or what we call a curable dementia. And I quickly want to go through what we call the 10 warning signs for Alzheimer's disease. Now, this was developed by the Alzheimer's Association to kind of give people just a map on things to look for. The first is kind of the one most common, is memory changes that disrupt daily life. Meaning that if you forget a name, or remember my father forgot my nephew's name, couldn't remember, who are you? Which one are you? And you know, it's things like that where you suddenly forgot that. Or forgetting the university he went to. He couldn't remember the name of his university. Changes in planning or problem solving. My grandmother was a great cook, and she used to know recipes backwards and forwards, and suddenly she wasn't doing her recipes correctly. You know, suddenly putting meat in a meringue pie, things like that. Difficult completing familiar tasks at home or at work. Driving is probably the most common one that we hear about. Really talking to someone about, you know, they're not remembering how to drive, or they're getting lost when they're driving. Confusion with time or place. The understanding seasons. I know that my grandmother used to put on a coat in the middle of summer in San Antonio. That was a sign that something wasn't completely right. Trouble understanding visual images. Again, this is one that I have a current gentleman who comes to my office, and he didn't realize that he had a tile floor that ran into a carpet floor. And he has Alzheimer's, and he would walk up and he'd stand there not understanding because he thought there was a step there. And he would stand there for a few minutes trying to put his toe down just to make sure how far the step was. But there was no step. He couldn't see that. Because of the color difference between the floors, he thought there was a step down. So that was kind of a sign he knew there was something wrong. New problems with words and speaking or writing. Again, this is what I see this a lot. My grandmother had beautiful penmanship. Suddenly, we found notes around her house where it was scribbles. Her handwriting changed completely. It's almost like a different person was writing. Misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace your steps. Again, I lose my keys all the time, and I can go, okay, I came in the front door, I walked around the kitchen, somewhere around there. I can retrace my steps. Someone with Alzheimer's disease cannot retrace their steps. Poor judgment. Just had a case yesterday in San Antonio, very prominent family in San Antonio. The patriarch has Alzheimer's disease. He got called on the telephone by a telemarketer, and he ended up giving them $30,000. So, it's things like that where I encourage families, when you start seeing the signs, to step in, make sure you're helping that loved one so they're not making those mistakes. Withdrawal from work or social activity, very common as well. When you start to get confused, you don't want to go out. You don't want to put yourself in an embarrassing situation, so you want to stay home. And then, of course, you want to stay in bed. Again, don't let your loved ones do this. Get them out. Get them socially active. Keep them walking, moving, talking. Changes in mood and personality, depression, anger. My father definitely went through anger with his Alzheimer's. The gentleman I just talked about in San Antonio who gave away his $30,000, he was a rather angry person in his life. His children say they've never seen him nicer. So I tell them, well, we don't want to be happy about Alzheimer's disease, but sometimes there can be some good. What is dementia? And again, one of the most common questions I get is, what is the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's disease? Dementia is kind of the overarching word. I usually use the comparison of, talk about cancer, and we have many different types of cancer. Kind of the same thing with dementia. Dementia is the overarching name, and there's many different types or diseases that have dementia. Alzheimer's is the most common. Almost 70% of dementias are Alzheimer's dementia. And that's why people kind of intertwine the two, because Alzheimer's is the most common. But there are other kinds. There's vascular dementia, Lewy bodies, frontal lobe, quite a few. And also want to point out reversible dementias, or curable dementias. They're dementias that can be connected to a vitamin deficiency or, UTIs, urinary tract infections. They can also, in someone older, can take the form of dementia. Those are things that can be cured. That's why we encourage people, when you start seeing signs, don't immediately think, I have Alzheimer's disease, I don't want to go to the doctor. Go to your doctor. Almost 10% of dementias are curable dementias. Now, with Alzheimer's disease, and again, I talked about typical forms of aging. Alzheimer's is not a typical form of aging. It is a brain disease, a deadly brain disease. And it causes changes in everyday life. Memory, language, thought, navigation, behavior, personality, planning, and organizing. And the definition they have here is the loss of cognitive functioning serious enough to interfere with your daily life. And again, we talked about that 70% of people with dementias have Alzheimer's disease. I always love this photo because this one reminds me of my grandmother and me. So I always loved to cook. She might not have been the best tasting food that I've ever had, but she did love to cook, and that says something. Now, 1 out of 9 people over the age of 65 right now are developing Alzheimer's disease. 1 out of 3 over the age of 85. Right now, about every 67 seconds, somebody is developing Alzheimer's disease. So it is on a huge rise. And again, we've already mentioned that it is a brain disorder, and it is progressive, and it affects your cognitive skills. And that 5.4 million people in the United States have Alzheimer's disease, and it's actually right now 46 million across the globe. And The Alzheimer's Association is the largest nonprofit funder of research in the world. We're third to the United States government and now the country of China. China has made Alzheimer's disease its #1 priority. And China has a huge aging population. And I'm going to introduce Steve here. Steve has Alzheimer's disease, and he's going to talk to you for a few seconds.
The types of things I noticed had to do with organizational abilities, mental abilities. And I was getting confused. I was finding it hard to plan. And there were two pivotal sort of moments that really brought this home to me. And the first one happened when I went into work one morning and sat down at my desk to plan out my day and couldn't figure out what to do. And literally sat there for an hour frozen and could not figure out what piece of paper to pick up first.
Now we're going to talk about the fun part, science. I know you guys love that, I can tell. If you need to get coffee, please do. We have about 100 billion nerve cells in our brains. They're called neurons. And they pass information back and forth, talk about how to eat, how to move, how to walk, how to breathe. Everything goes through our neurons. Alzheimer's disease kills those neurons. And you can see here, they kind of cut off where those all those little tangles, those arms, they break off that communication. So they're not able to communicate together. Here's a beautiful picture of her brain. And Alzheimer's disease starts in the front part of the brain and works its way back. That's why a lot of people will tell me, my loved one, they can remember what they did 50 years ago, but they can't remember what they did yesterday. That doesn't make any sense. That's very typical, because it starts in your front part of your brain, and that's where your most recent memories are, and it works its way back to where your older memories are. Here you have your healthy brain on one side and a brain with severe Alzheimer's disease. I always also use the example of a broccoli stalk. A beautiful, healthy broccoli stalk is kind of what our brain looks like. Take all of the water out of it, that's what a brain with Alzheimer's looks like. And the plaques and tangles, the two different types of proteins that are in your brain that cause Alzheimer's disease, and they basically take over your neurons. And here we're going to hear from Kitty. Kitty's husband has Alzheimer's disease, and Kitty's going to talk about things she saw from a caregiver's point of view when her husband started showing signs of Alzheimer's.
Bill had been a graduate student for an advanced degree, and he found himself having difficulty defending his thesis, the last thing that he needed to do. And he started making mistakes at work. We both somehow knew before he was diagnosed that something was very wrong. At first we hoped it was something that they could either operate or cut out or burn out or something. Or maybe he was depressed. Maybe he just needed a nice weekend and it would be fine. And then we realized maybe something's really very wrong. And it was. We went through several doctors, several unsuccessful attempts at getting some sort of diagnosis. Each time they would test Bill, he would ace their tests. If they wanted him to count backwards by 3, he could count backwards by 3.25. His problems were very, very subtle. And when we finally realized he was laid off from work, and I'm sure that was part of the reason why he was laid off from work. But during the election, when we elected a brand new president, although Bill wasn't working, he wanted to be active. So he volunteered to work at the polls. He was an officer of the election, And before he left, we were very, very excited about it. It was a long day. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. And we knew no matter what happened, it was going to be a historical event. So we were very, very excited. We would either have a female vice president or an African-American president. One of the two, and it was going to be huge. So we were excited about it. He went off, worked at the polls, came home and told me, and we were very animated, talked about the people all the way around the block waiting to vote, and we were so excited. We stayed up and watched the acceptance speeches, and we found out who won. We thought that was just amazing, and it was history. So the next morning, we got up and Bill said, I gotta get the paper. I said, why? He said, I gotta see who won. And we both realized, oh, he lost the whole day before because it was such a long day. And that was when I realized how serious it really was.
Kitty's story always shocks me because I think most families I meet with go through exactly the same thing. There's always that aha moment when you realize that there is something really wrong with your loved one. The risks of Alzheimer's disease. Age is still the #1 risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. Women are 2 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. African Americans are 2 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. Hispanics are 1.5 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. Now, and I've mentioned age. The second is Down syndrome. Down syndrome, individuals with Down syndrome, almost everyone that lives within or over the age of 40 will develop a form of Alzheimer's disease. There's a lot of testing right now going on of why there is that correlation, but Down syndrome is a huge factor. Family history. Again, that's somebody I had lots of people that I talk to about Alzheimer's that come to me and say, it's not in my family, not worried about it. Well, you should be because, again, age is the #1 risk factor, but about 4% of those with Alzheimer's disease have what we call familial Alzheimer's disease. That means you have a gene that causes Alzheimer's disease. There's actually 2. There's the familial and there's the APOE4. And that gene, again, causes Alzheimer's disease. And then, I know all of us have probably seen in the news lately about head injuries, football, military. Again, head injuries, definitely a huge risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. Heart-brain connection. We all know healthy body, healthy heart, healthy brain. We've got to all start thinking that now. We've pushed for a very long time, many decades in this country, for a food pyramid to really keep physically healthy. Unfortunately, as we've been doing that, we haven't been keeping up with our brains. So we need to remember to keep our brains healthy, keep our brains exercised. We finish school, high school, college, and then we kind of stop. We stop exercising our brains. And I think we need to really push, especially with our government, to get a program to keep our brains physically active. Now, going to see a doctor. And again, I'm going to push this my entire talk. Seeing the signs with your loved one, to go see a doctor. There's specialists, of course, neurologists, geriatricians. You're going to hear from those today. But to go and see them and talk to them about your signs. And when you go to see them, if it's you that are seeing the signs, take a loved one with you. Have them come and help you so you can say, look, I'm seeing these signs, but they are as well. And of course, Alzheimer's is, we are a lot better at diagnosing now, but it still is going to be a long process to get a diagnosis, and they're going to ask a lot of questions. So it's really good to have, backup. Have examples of what you're seeing. Keep a journal. Today I forgot this, or today my loved one did this. Keep a journal so that when you go to the doctor, you can show them exactly what your loved one is experiencing. Here we go, keeping a log. And then just make sure, just keep all your evidence. And here again, steps for that assessment. And I've mentioned many times, and of course everyone in this room is here today because they love their family. It is so important to have your family unit around you. And I know I work regularly, especially in a larger city, where you have a lot of people who don't have family. And it's trying to build that family network. But when you're dealing with a disease like Alzheimer's disease, having that family network built up early, having your family know what to expect, because Alzheimer's disease is the most expensive disease in the United States. So it's really making sure that your family knows what to expect. And then when you get a diagnosis, if you get a diagnosis for Alzheimer's disease, the emotions. And let me tell you, they go every direction. And I'll tell you, I know I had grief, I had anger when I heard about my grandmother, my father, my aunts, let me tell you. And you get really tired too. And then you get mad at your brothers when they won't do anything, and you know, it goes all around. But it's very normal to see, obviously, the person with the disease and their different emotions, but every member of the family will probably have every one of these. It'll be an emotional time, and just expect it. The different stages of Alzheimer's disease. Now, there are 3 stages: early, mid, and late. And early stages, you know, when we generally see the initial memory loss, little small things getting lost. An early stage, sometimes it's difficult to catch. Sometimes, like with my father, he can trick us, and you think he's doing okay. My father used to practice the clock test every morning so that when he went to the doctor, he'd be able to do it. So sometimes, see, that was back to that emotion thing where you get anger. But and then the middle stages, you know, you'll know someone when they're in the middle stages. And we've talked about a lot of the different memory tasks that you lose. And then the late stages is generally when you're going to need 24-hour, 7-day-a-week care. We're going to hear from Dr. Parker right now.
One of the things with respect to caregiving, and a lot of patients, families, and I count myself in this group, we're baby boomers. We're used to things the way we want them, and everything's conveniently disposed of, arranged, whatever. But it's not so easy to try to take care of your aging parent who lives 5 states away. And one of the things that most of us have not dealt with is who's going to take care of mommy, who's going to take care of daddy, how am I going to manage her business affairs, who makes decisions for what she wants to do for her health care. I don't think that those are decisions and discussions that most families have early enough. We have them in crisis, but we don't do them early so that we know what the game plan is. And if there's anything that I think that all of us should do is have a discussion with our parents, both of them, one of them, whichever one is available, early enough on to say, how do you want things to go if this happens to you?
I think the worst part about Alzheimer's disease is your lack of control. You have to let go of everything. And I think one of the greatest things about getting an early diagnosis is you still have some control. My father has the right to make the decision of who's going to control his estate, who's going to take care of him in his later years, who's going to be paying for that. That's his right now. But if he had not done anything, had not talked to us about it, had not gotten diagnosed, it would be whoever my brothers and I decided to do it. So I like that my father has complete control over that. Be an active partner, exactly. Making those decisions, getting an elder law attorney, talking to a financial advisor who can specialize in understanding what's happening to help you work out the best long-term care solution for you as well. Now, the drugs for Alzheimer's disease. I think this is probably the most frustrating part for me. There are 4 drugs right now on the market. There are about 96 that are currently in testing. And The last drug to come on the market was in 2003. So we haven't had a new drug in almost more than 12 years. And that's frustrating. And there, research is going on. We have 355 research projects around the globe that we are funding, and there is a huge push. But unfortunately, we had a big boom in research funding in the late 70s and definitely in the 80s, thanks to Ronald Reagan, who really pushed for that. And then research for Alzheimer's just kind of died out. It just kind of, funding stopped and interest stopped being focused on it. And it's only been in the last, I would say, 7 to 8 years that we've really focused again on increasing research. I think when people saw the huge numbers, people with Alzheimer's disease, then money started rolling in. So it is very frustrating that there are 4 drugs on the market. 3 of them work with the early to mid stages of Alzheimer's disease, and right now we just have Nam'd that is the only drug available for the later stages of Alzheimer's disease. And we're going to hear from Dr. Peterson again.
So what can we expect from these drugs? Primarily, we can expect that they may improve your learning and memory a little bit. They may improve your word-finding abilities. They may improve a person's social interactions. So there may be behavioral effects as well as the cognitive effects of these medications. But generally, they improve the overall situation to a certain extent. Now, is that in fact effective? We think so, but it's modest. In some people, they may not notice any particular difference. On the other hand, in some individuals, they may preserve their function for a longer period of time. However, these are not disease-modifying therapies, so they really don't have an impact on the overall outcome of the disease. Nevertheless, they may be very useful in the short run.
Now I want to talk about clinical trials. We have information over at the Alzheimer's table about our clinical trials and trial match, signing up for trial match. And I can't push enough to everybody in this room to please fill out the information for trial match. There is the only way we're going to find more medicine, a cure, is to have volunteers, healthy volunteers, volunteers with Alzheimer's in their family, or volunteers with Alzheimer's to help with clinical trials, or we're not going to find the drugs or the cure that we need. It's just that simple. And right now, we have many people that in San Antonio here that are trying to do research projects that need volunteers. Dr. Yvonne Lozano, who's going to be speaking this afternoon, she has a survey in that folder. That is for a project, a research project she's working on looking at why Hispanics are developing Alzheimer's at a higher rate. That's huge. That's extremely important. So it's those kind of things that we encourage you to fill that survey out, to volunteer for trial match, or we can't find a cure for this disease. The Alzheimer's Association has a lot of tools, great number of tools. Our website, I actually go to our website quite regularly. Great videos, especially on driving. I had to learn to take the car keys away from my dad. There's 3 great videos on there on kind of 3 different scenarios on how to talk to your loved one about not driving anymore. We have our 24/, 7-day-a-week helpline. I call it too. You can call it any hour, and it's trained counselors on the phone to be able to answer your questions or just talk to you in the middle of the night when you have to get up with your loved one because they've started to wander. We have support groups. And I know Eliseo Chavez is somewhere around the room. He'll be around to talk to you about different programs that are going on here in South Texas. And then making a difference. We already talked about Monday, wearing purple, spreading awareness. It's the only way we're going to do it. It's the grassroots. We've seen it with breast cancer. We've seen it with HIV and AIDS. You've got to get the community involved, get the word out, or you're not going to get politicians, those with money, to focus on the disease. And that's why we're here. That's why we do the walk. That's why we have our longest day on June 21st. That's why I spend way too much time up in Chicago and Washington, D.C., is to really make sure those people are paying attention and have it on their agenda. So be loud. Don't be embarrassed. This disease has had a stigma for way, way too long, and it's time to get focused on this so we can find a cure and end Alzheimer's disease. So thank you very much, and I can answer any questions, and we'll move on to our next speaker.
You had a slide about the blood pressure.
Right.
What is that?
Well, heart and brain are definitely interconnected, especially with vascular dementia and Alzheimer's disease. 63% of individuals with Alzheimer's disease have heart-related issues. So, definitely keeping track of your cholesterol, keeping your heart healthy, definitely they are combined. 81% of individuals with Alzheimer's disease also have diabetes.
You mentioned that you use a gene, APEG something.
APO4, yes.
AP what?
APO, let me get it exactly.
Oh.
I know I'm going to get all the letters backwards. APOE4. Is that it? Perfect. Well, thank you. You guys are an easy audience.
Thank you once again, Nick, our director of the South Texas San Antonio Alzheimer's Association. Thanks for your time. Okay, our next speaker is not here. He is traveling from Edinburgh, McAllen area. He's stuck in a storm. However, his official speak time is not until 9:20, so we have a good 20 minutes. So right now is a good time to network and meet with the vendors until its official start time. But before that, I really want to give a big shout out to the University of Texas at Brownsville for letting us this amazing facility today. I thank them very much for their time and efforts, and especially the University of Texas at Brownsville Student Health Services Department for lending their services to us to bring you this conference, and for the time and efforts of Jorge Munoz and Rosie Carrillo, she's standing back there. Say hi. Thank you so much for all your efforts in doing this. And for our volunteers today, they're all wearing white shirts. And just give us that. All right, Sam. Giselda, Lisa, Corina, Paula, Juan, Ricardo, and Caregiver. Closed. Okay. Again, right now is a good time to get up, stretch, get some another round of breakfast, and at 9:20 we'll check back in, see where the speakers are at.